This is a tutorial on the Audio Accessibility Pack. In this video I'm going to be showing how to integrate the Audio Accessibility and its widgets into the third person template. There should be not really any different from the integration into your own pack. So let's start. First thing you'll need to do is we need to create a project channel. So let's go to Project Settings. Then we go down to Collision. Now, object channel, what we want to do is we want to give this a name. So we're going to call this Audio Accessibility. And we want to set this to ignore. Except this, we have the channel. It's great. Character, so this would be the third person blueprint, third person character here. Let's go here and add a collision sphere. Okay, sphere collision, add this, and let's call this Audio Accessibility. Yep, that'll do. So, compile, save, and click on the Audio Accessibility sphere. And what we want to do is on the right hand side here, we want to go down to the collision channels, collision presets, and we want to change this to custom. The type, object type, now we've set this to custom, we want to set to Audio Accessibility. And we want to set everything to ignore with the exception of Audio Accessibility. For the sake of sanity, I'm just going to change the name on this so we don't get confused later on. So let's call this Audio Accessibility Detector. Now if we look at our character, we've got this little sphere. Move this up to about your head. Compile and save. So this will not interact with anything else other than the traces that are looking specifically for anything to do with audio accessibility. Now we're going to add an interface now. There we go, press the add button. BPI accessibility. Interface is now in place. You should be able to see the accessibility options here. Before we save, add in the accessibility component, so BPC, and then game to HUD notify. Compile and save, and we should be almost ready to go. Now, if you look at the example inside this pack, under the BP audio accessibility blueprints, and then we look at the accessibility example. I'm going to put this one to the other side, and let's go into event graph. What we have here is we have actual examples on how to call these events. Now, first things first, we're going to want to call the damage markers. They are independent and they are always rendered on the HUD. They're just hidden. Okay, so this is linked to our begin play, and what we'll do is we'll just copy this over here and paste that in. The rest of it, examples to call the BPC, HUD, notify, and components, I would just copy the lot. Boom, there we go. There's no variables here that we need to worry about, so this should come across without any problems. Compile and save. What we have here is we have event radial damage and also the event point, and maximize this again, and the event point damage, or visualize point damage. If you have your own damage system, link these to the end of your damage process, or the start of your damage process, but use the same points here. So the origin for the radial and the trace start from the visualized point damage. Now that's his character, good to test the audio examples. So I'll just X out of here. I'll drag in one of the damage simulators. So let's just do sound simulator. Let's just do footsteps. Paste that in. And there we go. That's that working. So let's look at how we can work with the notifications for example, the car, which is a persistent sound, and your footsteps or gunshots, which are impulse sounds. So let's look at this one first. So if you go to Audio Accessibility, Blueprints, Sound Simulators, then BP Footprint Sound Simulator, edit this. Now I've got a lot of nonsense going on here, so we don't care about the movement, but what we do care about is the sphere overlap actor. Now what this is doing is, this is what we need here. You may not want to include the debug sphere, so you can remove this from your setup if you don't want. So for example, this is a footstep. So every footstep notify that you would have on your footstep setup, you would trigger one of these events to happen, the sphere to be created along with the sound. So you create your sound, and then after the sound's created, you would create one of these overlap spheres. Now, since you've brought this into a new project, let's look in here. So we've got make array. Make sure this is actually set to audio accessibility, as you may have lost audio accessibility being the value in this array. If you have custom objects on your collision, they may take the precedence over what was there before you pasted this into your project. So if you had a special weapons channel, this would register the next number up on your custom objects. Cool. So what you would do is you would basically copy this code. All this here, and I'll just remove this from the equation, pop that here, and you would just call this as it is from your footstep notify. The same goes for the a gunshot. The only variance from this is the car sound simulator. This has a start and an end. So as a car's a persistent sound, every time we have the overlap, we're checking for does the interface exist, and pass this to the start vehicle to HUD and stop vehicle to HUD. Reason that this is done this way, this will allow multiple vehicles to register as multiple widgets registered on your HUD. Okay, perfect. On the materials, if we're to look at the point and radial, they're the same, and they do not support a picture. The overlay image will discolor the red or the whatever color you've chosen, and overlay an image on that. Indicator size increases the span. Radius makes it bigger and smaller for the circle. Thickness, well, it does what it says on the tin. We'll exit out here and we'll look at the accessibility for weapons. Zoom in a little bit. Now how this works is we have an icon, and you can see I'm flicking between two here. So we have the same donut that we were using in the previous example, but now we actually have two options on what we can do. We can actually create a single icon for notification with the donut behind it, or if you want to have an icon with maybe some wings on it or something to more motion based beside that, you can choose the texture frame, select texture frame, and then you can choose a second image from here to overlay that will rotate in conjunction with this image. I'll just roll that back. Now, one thing about these images is all of them are included in the pack at 500 by 500 pixels. But as you can see here, all of them have been positioned onto a 2000 by 2000 image, and they're positioned at different levels. So if I load up multiples of these, so footsteps, explosion, obviously I've loaded up footsteps again, explosion, drone. Okay, so they're all at different levels. So this may take some tweaking to get the donut in the right place behind it, but just play with the radius and you'll be able to line it up, no problem. If you wish to add your own, make sure you position them in the center in art package like GIMP, Photoshop, something along those lines, and that will be where they rotate from, as this whole image will actually be rotating on your HUD. Okay. Any questions, feel free to reach out on the Discord, but thanks very much folks for tuning in. Catch you next time.